firmly grounded and rooted in your own divinity, regardless of what's going on in your life or in the world. Feel that groundedness, that rootedness that is always there, always has been, always will be, because it is our true nature. It is what is here to shine through our personality, through our humanness. So ask yourself, how do my roots show? How does my rootedness in my essential nature show? Do not look for how it doesn't or how you don't, but how it does and how you do. Teeny tiny ways and big massive ways and everything in between. And with each breath, feel it as a celebration of you. In this brief time of silence, notice what distracted you. Notice how you were distracted. And make a promise to yourself to be more present in your own rootedness of being spirit in physical form. Remember, in spirit there is no great or small, there just is. So whatever you choose, let it be a promise you make to yourself today. And let the ringing of the phone be a reminder for us to turn our phones off. To not judge our distractions inside and out. And to let them be rings of bells that bring us back to the present moment. To the breath and to our essential nature. So now gently bring your attention back. When you're ready, open your eyes. Good morning. Do I smell bad? You're all like so far away. Deodorant is still working. Yes, come closer, come closer. When we're not completely packed, I really love it when you come a little closer. Thank you so much. I'm Frankie Timmers. I'm the spiritual director here. So good to see everyone and to be present to this Sunday morning celebration where we come together remembering who and what we are. If you're here for the first time, we extend a special welcome. And we're really excited because you're giving yourself a gift on your spiritual path that has the potential to really blossom you. Because we're a teaching. We're not charity. We don't do that as well. Many other centers do, other churches do. We're a teaching center. And what we teach is the science of mind, and we always offer classes and workshops. So take a look at our calendar and see what's available. And talk to the people who are taking classes and ask if anything is happening. How many of you are in class? Look around. You see somebody cute, adorable, approachable, just go up to them and say, what's it like to take a class? We have a discovery class, which happens 2-3 times a year, which is for anyone that is interested in, curious about our teaching, our center, and being a member. So it's a free class, and that's going to happen on March 25th. So come and visit us for that. The beautiful Gail Belluardo is assisting me today as the licensed practitioner. And for about 6 years, Gail has been serving this center by having a healing circle every first Friday of the month. It's a very powerful experience. It's a healing experience, and she has a beautiful healing consciousness, so she extends that as her service to the community. It didn't happen this Friday because the rehearsals were going on for the musical that's happening this afternoon. So she's going to do it next Friday, which is good for you. You can all come on Friday at 7 p.m. It's about an hour. And you can go have lunch today because the musical does not start until 2 o'clock. Allie Greenberg, also known as Allie Skylar, who is the writer of that musical, has been a friend of our center for a long time. And this teaching really inspired her to start a whole business, to write a musical, to write a book, to have podcasts and all that stuff. So you're going to want to come back today at 2 o'clock to witness that wonderful musical that she has. It's called Life Sucks. Just kidding. And look who's here. Mike Bardash and Jackie Jones. We're really grateful that they're here to do some beautiful music for us. So let's start with a healing treatment, which is our word for affirmative prayer. So I invite you to close your eyes and just feel yourself opening like a most beautiful lotus flower. Hold off on trying to figure out what a lotus flower looks like. Because if your mind can't think of what it looks like, just imagine one. And imagine that it's raining after a long time of drought. It's a soft, gentle rain, and your petals are simply taking in the nourishment. Today we remember that we're always firmly grounded and rooted in the truth with a capital T. In the absolute wisdom and knowing of life itself with a capital L. In the essence of love moving through us, in us, as us. And this love is the divine energy that is ever present in everyone, everything, everywhere, all the time, regardless of what we believe. And today we open to this essence, to this life that courses through our veins, that moves through our consciousness, that blesses us every single breath and every single heartbeat in such a way that we remember deeply, powerfully, that we are always rooted in the divine because we are the divine in physical form. And so we've been given this life so that we can awaken to our own divinity no matter how hard life gets. Life is there to invite us back to remembering who and what we are, to remember the truth, the ancient wisdom teachings that have existed since the beginning of time, and to live them to the best of our ability. And so we do this with infinite compassion for ourselves and for each other, trusting that divine right action is always taking place, that it's a journey, not a destination. And remembering that there is so much support and so much love to help us remember who and what we really are and what our purpose is, whether it's simple or more complex or anything in between. So we're grateful because today is the perfect right day to be here, to be now, to listen from the place of inside and outside and finding that cohesion that moves us into action. Today we're grateful to have this spiritual community available to us, to be open enough to this wonderful teaching called the Science of Mind so that we can live a thriving, blossoming, fruitful life till the end of time in this experience. And so we let this word be the blessing that falls upon the fertile soil of consciousness, and we let it come to a divine activity that blesses everyone on this planet, including the planet itself. And so it is.
So it is.
While I'm getting ready, I want to just remind you that next week is Daylight Savings Time. It's especially important in the spring, because in the fall, you just get here an hour early and we put you to work. But in the spring, there's always somebody that walks in and goes, "What just happened?" So I'm reminding you now. So the theme for the year is 100 Years of the Science of Mind. Ernest Holmes wrote the first textbook, Creative Mind, in 1918. And so for 100 years, we have been exposed to the blessings of his teachings. He passed away in the 60s, but he leaves a huge bulk of information and teachings and wisdom, of which we are using Living the Science of Mind for the year. And for the month of March, in case you're participating in that, we're reading this thing called You, one of my favorite little books, my little go-tos. The book I always recommend when somebody asks me what's the first book I should read. This thing called You. And so for the month of March, we are approaching a new theme, and it's called Rooted in the Divine. And we get to be freaking radical about it. As people who are on a spiritual path, as people who are enamored by the science of mind philosophy, who are students, who call themselves religious scientists or science of mind students, of which I'm one. It's my life. It's been my life for 30-some years, and it will be my life until I take my last breath and into whatever the next experience is. I eat, sleep, chew, stumble over, etc., this teaching. It is the one thing that always calls me back to this place that I know I am firmly rooted in, which is spirit. It's not just true for me, it's true for each and every one of us. Each of you are firmly rooted and grounded in whatever you call that. God, spirit, divine love, essential wisdom, creativity, the force, the source. And so we're here to live that. And I think we should be radical about it. I only just discovered yesterday that the word radical is rooted in rooted. Radical means rooted. Radical means your essential nature. Radical means your origin. And so each of us get to be radical about being our true essential self, about being wisdom, about being perfect health, about creativity, about abundance, about health, and everything that I can think of that is most gracious and glorious. So we already are that. You already are rooted in your divine nature. You always have been, you always will be. That's who you are. Why then do we pretend we aren't? Think for a moment where in your life you pretend you're not rooted in spirit. Think for a moment when you don't, and how intensely you pretend not to be a spiritual being, not to be rooted in love, not to be rooted in abundance, not to be rooted in the truth. That, my friends, is a powerful question. But the answer is even more powerful, because the answer will tell you what you believe about being rooted in spirit. Because I can tell you till I'm blue in the face or you purple, but it won't make a difference until you realize that's who you really are. And that all this other stuff is just pretend. I'm just going to pretend to be sick. I'm just going to pretend to be poor. I'm going to pretend to be broken. I'm going to pretend to be old, smart, ugly, wise, rich. All that is just pretense in comparison to who and what we really are, which is spirit in a unique, individualized expression called this life. And so this life has the opportunity to awaken us. Right? So think for a moment as I'm talking, when you pretend to be less than your true nature. Is it when you go shopping? Is it when you look at your bank account? Is it when you look at your relationships? The ones that you struggle with? Because the other ones, they're easy. Is it when it comes to your work, your career? Is it your self-esteem? Is it your health? Is it your... I can't think of anything else right now. It will come. But you know what I'm talking about, because each of us has something in life where we pretend to be less than what we really are, than who we really are. So you're in really great company because you are not alone. That's what happens when we come into this human expression. That's what happens when we're born. We move from our spirit, from our soul, into a physical experience, because that physical human experience is perfect for you to awaken to your true nature, to remember who you really are, and to choose to live that, instead of feeling like you're less than. So what happens then is we come into this experience knowing that we're whole, perfect, and complete, that we're spirit-informed, that we are the true self, always will be, always are. And then things happen in life where we go, my worldly self is who I really am. We begin to, because of our life experiences, to identify more with our human nature, with our worldly self, and then we have a story. And some of you love to tell it every day. And some of you create 12-step meetings around it. And some of you spend fortunes on therapists. And some of you take way too many workshops that you don't put into practice. And some of us read way too many books, and then they lie there on the shelf. I know who I'm talking to, because I'm the same way. We all do this, right? Until we get to a place where we realize we don't have to do that. And again, let me first have a disclaimer. I have nothing against therapists, this teaching, any books, any workshops, any medicine. Because all of that is spirit in expression. I just want us to realize what we do with our spiritual nature, because there comes a moment in life where we have to choose. And I mean choose consciously. Because up until then, we're just choosing unconsciously, thinking that that perfect man is going to fix our lives, or that perfect woman. Where we think once we find the magic bullet for, and I'm not talking about the blender thing, although that's a great invention. I use mine every day. But where we look for the magic bullet. Where we have this idea that once I get over there, then I'll be all right. Once I make enough money, once I'm healthy, once I have that relationship, once I have that job, once I'm better, then I'll be all right. But then we get there and we realize it's better, but it's still not satisfying. So this life, this worldly experience is here to show us, to heal us, to reveal our own true nature, to remind us who and what we really are, and to give us the tools to give that more expression. and then we forget again. I have distilled this whole thing around spirituality in 2 very simple practices. It's forgetting and remembering. It's that simple for me at this point. I'm either remembering who I really am or I have forgotten who I really am. And I don't know about you, but for me, I can feel the difference quickly. Because if I am resentful or angry or worried or anxious or fearful or blah, 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 blah times 300, I feel that. And I know that isn't my true self. I know that isn't my essential nature. I know that's when I'm not rooted firmly in my radicalness of being the truth. And you and I also know when we are. It's those moments of all is well, when a storm is raging. It's those moments of deep connection with one another. It's those moments of looking into your puppy's eyes and just freaking melting. And I don't even have a puppy, but I know what that feels like. I don't want a puppy. Yeah. Or a kitten. Some of you ask me, you want a puppy or a kitten? No, I do not. Right? It's those moments when you see the first crocuses come out of the ground. It's those moments when you get good news after a struggle or after some medical tests. You know what I'm talking about. You know the difference, right? Anybody here not know the difference between remembering who you are and forgetting who you are? Would you be willing to put your hand up? No, I'm just kidding. Of course you know. Of course you know. And so that tells us something, right? It tells us that we have a thermometer inside that tells us whether we're in our true essential self or whether we're stuck in our worldly experience. The idea then is to use the worldly experiences as a gift because they are wake-up calls to remind us of what the truth is about, and then we get to respond, we get to choose. So when you're struggling, no matter what your struggle is, and we all do at times, some of you more than others, but when we struggle, it's a really good catch in your mind to tell yourself to pause. Just pause. Pause. And just check in. And just remember. Listen to this, the words of Ernest Holmes. This great thing within you, which is called will or choice, can decide your destiny. It can remove every obstruction and gradually implant new patterns in your mind. Suppose you place your physical environment, including your body and your conscious mind, at one end of the line. At the other end, place your spiritual being, God, and infinite possibility. At this end of the line, everything is already perfect. Jesus called this the kingdom of heaven, which ought to come on earth. It should make its advent in your experience. It wants to. The Spirit seeketh such. This end of the line is the kingdom which has been promised. This Spirit is happy, whole, free, filled with joy, eternal in its existence, and can provide you with everlasting expansion. All your highest hopes and dreams have come from it. The echo of its being is in your intellect. The voice of its unspoken word is in your mind. The feeling of its light and life is in your heart. The emotion of its imagination is in your soul. At the other end of the line is your physical environment, including your body, most of your conscious thoughts, your daily hopes and aspirations, fears and failures. All apparently isolated, wandering in a desert of despair, climbing endless mountains, at times lost in interminable forests through which light does not break, fording rushing streams in the turmoil of life, searching, wondering, hoping, longing, yearning toward that other half of its being, which alone can make it whole. Don't you think this is a good description of your attitudes and experiences? One half of you in heaven, the other half on a dense earth, the heavenly willing to come forward and answer your every need, the earthly half striving towards the heavenly and the apparent barrier. If you knew, as you know that you live, that this barrier were only a thing of thought or belief, the first half of your journey would be accomplished. You would know that you have the tools to cut down the forests, level the mountains, bridge the streams, and cause the deserts to bloom. If you listen to yourself long enough, you will know this. With hope and enthusiasm, you will start on your journey. You will never become discouraged or disheartened. Your vision will be on the city of good, and your feet, your mind, your intellect, your will travel toward this city, and you shall surely enter its gates. Pause when you find yourself forgotten, that you have forgotten that you are pure spirit in form, and make some choices. And then take responsibility for those choices. Remember, you're here to be real with a capital R. You're here to be rooted in spirit. You can't help it. That's who you are. You're here to shine. You're here to share your light. You're here to be that, capital T-H-A-T. And so we have to find ways to do this remembering. And that's why we have our spiritual practices. Some of you are meditators through affirmations, visualization, visioning, spiritual mind treatment or prayer. And of course, those of you a few weeks ago joined us in this no complaints, which is now a spiritual practice. No complaints. We're using this in class. It's a 21-day challenge to not complain. And whenever you find yourself complaining, and I have to use an app for that, you switch bracelets and you start all the way over at day 1. I made it to day 8. And then I complained really badly to Norman, my honey. And it was so interesting because I caught myself complaining, and I figured, I'm going to milk this one because I'm not supposed to complain for 21 days after this. And then I found myself complaining because we have a home together, and I moved in with him 3 years ago, and I have the upstairs. So I have 3 rooms and a generous hallway and my own bathroom. And I've been complaining in my head, and that's not the practice. The practice is not complaining in your head, the practice is complaining out loud. But I took it a little further because I felt like I had to punish myself a little bit. And so I've been complaining about my space, that it's a little cluttery, that stuff is all over, and I want to organize it, and I've been there 3 years. And so Friday and Saturday, Norman was away, I spent about 12 hours cleaning, decluttering, moving things around. Now I have one room that's a TV room and a guest room. I have another room that's my craft and arts room, and everything is in that room. It used to be everywhere. And then I have my sleeping space, my meditation space, and then the hallway now has a couch and a little desk, and it's lovely. So I'm really excited. So I had this thought where he's not there, I'm going to go work out, I'm going to go do my rooms, and I worked and worked and worked, and at one moment I bent over and I went, what's that smell? I realized it was me. I hadn't showered yet. And so I just kind of slipped into the shower, and I thought, you know what, that's how we have to think about when we move from forgetting to remembering. It's like just slipping into the shower, just kind of going, oh, I smell bad, I'm just going to jump into the shower. So I'm going to have you have this really great visual of me being really stinky. Please keep it clean. I am 60, you know. Norman says I make clothes look really good. So it's the idea of slipping into your true self. Slipping into your essential nature, which is what you already are. It's not something you have to find, look for, get, buy, learn about. It's just something that you slip into. Every day we have habits that we don't even think about. And is there anybody here who does not brush their teeth at least once a day? Same thing. Just like we brush our teeth, take showers, eat breakfast, have our coffee or tea in the morning, start our car to go somewhere, we can slip just as easily after we pause into our essential nature and show up that way in the world. And that's a practice. That's a practice. You will forget. Your forgetfulness can lead to remembrance. Your remembrance will make you a better person, and it will make the world a better place. Any of you who have complaints about the status of the world today, pause and say, what's my part in that? Because the world is just a reflection of our consciousness. And how have I forgotten my true self and am stuck in my worldly self? And how can I step back into my rooted consciousness, my true foundation, and live from that, choose from that, see the world from that? In the back of this little book, this thing called You. It says, one of Ernest Holmes' cornerstone works, this thing called You, is an intimate guide through which readers learn the important lessons of how they are an immutable part of the flow of life and how they may fulfill the longing within all of us to live more fully. I don't think there's anyone here that doesn't want to live more fully. My life is pretty freaking awesome, but I want more. I want to live more fully. I want to have a freer mind, a freer heart, a freer body, a freer life, greater self-expression. I want to be an instrument to cultivate peace on this planet and harmony. So I have a little work to do. But that's what I want, to live even more fully. And I'm sure all of you do. There is a way, and that way happens inside of you. So when you get lost and you forget, simply press pause and take a moment how you can remember the truth of your very nature, which is that you are firmly rooted and planted in your own divinity. Are you in?
Yeah.
Good. All right, let's listen to some music.
Thank you, Jackie and Mike. Thank you so much. So, I thought today I would share a little bit about an experience I had and how I got to use one of our spiritual practices. When we talk about being human and divine, it's really, we aren't one or the other, we're both. And so our challenge is always to reveal the divine through our human experience. And when we accept all of ourselves and all of the circumstances in our lives, then we feel our wholeness, and that wholeness represents our wholeness with God. Because if we're in separation from a part of ourselves, I'll speak for myself, if I'm in separation from a part of myself, then I'm not only in separation from my wholeness and myself, I'm in separation from God. And so the remembering is something that is always a practice for me. So I wanted to do a quick reading from this book. It's All God. It's from a course that Reverend Frankie taught about a year and a half ago. Excellent course. And it's about our humanity. So he talks about our inclusiveness, and inclusiveness means our wholeness. And this is It's All God by Walter Starkey. Our need to be inclusive applies to the outside of our lives as well as the inside. As long as anything or any condition is present in our lives, it involves a purpose. Though we resist what we consider to be evil or what we don't like, I add that, we must realize that rough spots and illnesses would not have been included in our lives unless there were something to be revealed through them. Something that would make us become more fully conscious beings if we can hear what they are telling us. So if something is included in our awareness, good or bad, it has information. And it will most likely stay with us or repeat itself until we include it and discover its purpose. So my little story is about, has to do with something personal and political, and it's in relation to gun control and an experience I had with a family member. And so everybody knows what's been happening in the outer world. And I have a brother, well, let me just preface this with, in my family, you either, when it came to anger, you either suppressed it and denied it, or it was acted out in a hurtful way to someone else. So I have a brother who is provocative, likes being provocative and arguing. And I don't like arguing, but he seems to draw me in, okay? And especially on Facebook, okay? I resist a lot on Facebook, but, you know, he drew me in. So I have avoided any kind of conflict with him, but he sends me a video, personal message, so nobody else can see. He sends me a video and I believe in the Second Amendment, I will say that, okay? I have opinions about gun control, though. So anyway, he sends me this video, and it's the NRA president bad-mouthing everybody who wants any kind of gun control. And so I watched it, and I thought to myself, oh, here he goes again, right? Here he goes again. And then what I did, instead of just being in my anger, pretending I wasn't angry, or saying something I might regret later, I took a deep breath. And as I took that deep breath, I remembered that God is inspiring me, that I am an expression of God, and therefore that breath is a breath that's going to help me with this experience, this reaction I'm having. And so what I did was I decided, not consciously, but like I said, on some level, what can I do with this anger, this energy that I'm having, you know, toward him or toward whatever. And essentially, I just said, just reflect, just reflect. And I realized that I wasn't clear about my own opinions, just my own opinions about gun control. So what I did was I took a deep breath and I reflected and I said, what do I believe? I see everything, everybody's, you know, putting out their opinions and everything, and, you know, Facebook will give you lots of opinions, and I think it's there just to stir us up sometimes, and keep us at odds with each other and keep us in separation, but that's another story. But so I just really said to myself, what is it that I believe? And what happened was, all of a sudden, I went into myself, and the clarity was like amazing. Amazing. And I just was grateful because once I got that clarity and I used that energy to get clarity, and if you're in this teaching a while, you know that clarity is one of the qualities of God. So I tuned into that God nature that was within me, got the clarity, and then I was at peace. And that peace is something that I always try to have. And so with that peace, I was able to, instead of react, as I might have, I responded, and I wrote back to him exactly what I believe. And for the first time, he never responded. Because it's simply what I believe. You know, I'm not saying you're wrong. And so it brought me to peace, but it also helped me to feel whole again. You know, feel whole again. And in that wholeness and being at peace, then I could accept my brother and whatever his opinions were. And that was such a gift. And that's one of the ways we can use this teaching. Thank you.